name came from an Inspiral Carpets poster that was in Liam and Noel's bedroom advertising a gig at the Swindon Oasis. I think our Liam just liked the sound and the look of the name and thought, I'm having that, I'm mad for it. Liam was well into being in a band, and be fair to him, he doesn't always get the credit that he should for really going in for it. Liam isn't the easiest going person in the world, but he wanted to be in a band so much, he put everything into it. Liam was on the dole at the time, but he really believed in the band, even if nobody else did. The first gig they played was supporting Sweet Jesus at the Boardwalk on Little Peter Street in Manchester on the 18th of August 1991, with a lineup of Liam on vocals, Bonehead on guitar, Paul McGuigan on bass and Tony McCarroll on drums. There were only about 40 or 50 people in the club, but among the audience were all the members of the Inspiral Carpets, Noel, his girlfriend Louise, and me. It was quite a grim gig, and I remember how Liam being really nervous about singing in front of all his mates. He still gets nervous about it now, for that night you could tell. On stage he did sound very Ian Brownish, struggling with some of the notes, but although it was far from brilliant, as debut gigs go, I've seen plenty worse. Liam's attempts at doing a few Ian Brown style steps on stage looks a bit goonish, so if you ever wonder why he stands still with his hands behind his back when he's singing on stage, you now know. The songs they played that night were all written by Liam and Bonehead. Take Me was the only one which survived after our Noel joined the band and started sorting the songs out. I don't think our Noel was particularly impressed that night, but he admired the way Liam had achieved what he wanted to achieve, which was to be the frontman in a band. Noel had always wanted to be in his own band, a band that performed his songs, but he was still with the Inspiral Carpets, and he probably thought it was too early. I suspect that if that lineup of Oasis had been really good, Noel would never have joined because he wanted to shape a band himself. The band was rehearsing at the Boardwalk. Noel had finished with the Inspiral Carpets by then, and had been given a fairly generous payoff of about £2,000. Towards the end he had been earning £500, £600 a week, which meant he had a few bob in his pocket. That certainly made having Noel in the band doubly appealing to Liam. Noel was living with Louise in a flat on Whitby Street in Manchester, a mere 5-minute walk from the Boardwalk. So Noel left the Inspiral Carpets and joined Oasis on what must be one of the best free transfers of all time. Noel knew that first and foremost what Oasis needed was songs, money and a lead guitarist. He fitted all those categories perfectly, and he had the experience of touring all over the world with the Inspiral Carpets and seeing how they managed to become successful. Our Liam's reasons for wanting Noel in were the same, but not necessarily in that order. Money, a lead guitarist, experience and probably lastly, songs. It was no secret that Noel wanted to be in a band, but not just any old band. It had to be right, and that for Noel basically meant his band. I think he saw in Liam what he wanted to be years earlier, a cocky, arrogant kid with a voice and a need and a desire to be heard and noticed. Things started a little shakily, and there were some major teething problems, the main one being that Noel walked straight in and started giving out orders. Liam resented this. After all, he'd been the one who got up off his backside, found a band, auditioned for them, got them to change their name, and then Noel comes back after being away for ages, swans in and takes over. That's where the whole battling Gallagher myth started. Noel made a big difference and quickly stamped his mark on the band. He had loads of songs and bits of songs that he'd written over the years, and he was trying to work a lot of these into the band. It was 5 months after Oasis' first gig that Noel played his debut gig with a band at the Boardwalk. With their new lead guitarist, they certainly looked and sounded more like a rock and roll band with a mission on that night of the 15th of January 1992. By the summer, after another couple of gigs, they even started to get a few write-ups. Steve Cowell, who wrote for a free Manchester paper come magazine called Uptown, interviewed Paul McGuigan and Noel in a Manchester pub and was really nice about the band. Penny Anderson gave them a good write-up, almost 1,000 words in the word column in the Manchester Evening News. She said that the band's demo tape was the best she'd heard all year. Despite the fact that their lyrics needed some work and the songs were a bit long, Penny had spotted a glimmer of originality. Noel was realistic about how far the band still had to go. Oasis music isn't pop or rock, but somewhere in between, maybe POC. We're going to bide our time until we feel confident enough to come up and then really go for it. Oasis were noisy and raucous. It took a while for the songs to settle in and for them to discover how to put them across. In September 1992, Manchester hosted its first In the City International Music Seminar, and every band in Manchester wanted a gig, but very few managed to land one. Noel was desperate for Oasis to get involved, and after some major hassling got lucky wangling a date on the bill at the unsigned talent night. Oasis were due on stage at 10 o'clock, and there were a fair number of people in. I was amused to spot Gary Davis, the Radio 1 DJ, in the crowd. The guy stuck out like a sore thumb, wearing those really bright clothes among the scallies and unwashed student crusty types. I can honestly say that the first national radio DJ to see Oasis live was none other than Gary Davis. Liam was still doing his loon-type dance and trying to sing like Ian Brown, very northern on the vowel sounds and slightly off-key. The gig at the Boardwalk on the 22nd of November 1992 was the first time Oasis encountered anything which resembled a crowd, with just over 100 or so people turning out on a cold Wednesday night. Oasis were bottom of the bill, headlining with the Cherries, together with Molly Harford, featuring Noel's ex-colleagues Paul Barsley and Neil Daly. Molly Harford had just had a few singles out. They were the band most people had come to see. Still, there were a few influential Mancunians in the audience, a couple of DJs from the local stations like Craig Cash and Pete Mitchell, Terry Christian and all the people from Red Alert. In fact, they were all mates of Noel and Louise. Oasis were first on and blasted out 6 numbers: a version of Columbia, Take Me, Must Be the Music, an acoustic one, an untitled number, a rocky psychedelic cover of a house number called Better Let You Know, and attempted for the first time live Whatever, with Liam comically holding the lyrics in front of him. They had been on stage for about 30 minutes, maybe more, and were just about to debut I'm the Walrus, when the Cherries, worried that everyone would leave after they'd seen Molly Harford, pulled the plug on them. Well, there were a few words bandied about on stage with our Liam, Noel and Bonehead storming off, leading to a ruck backstage with the Cherries, in which Oasis were the victors. The band really started to find its feet in March 1993. The time spent rehearsing showed, and they began to sound like they were getting somewhere when they ventured out of town to play in Liverpool, at Le Bateau. Oasis was supposed to be supporting a band called Small, now Smaller. The band's singer and songwriter Diggsy later became good mates with Noel. After Oasis had soundchecked, Diggsy said Oasis should headline because they were better than his band. Well, Noel loved that, and it says a lot for Diggsy. I can't imagine how many Manchester bands as good as Smaller offering to let a support band move up the bill and headline instead of them, especially a band from out of town. In April, Oasis were back in Liverpool, again sharing a gig with Smaller, but this time at the Crazy House. This was the night I first really believed my brothers would make it. Our Noel suddenly hit a rich vein of form. Noel had been writing a lot and had a whole batch of good new songs to bring into the set. It was here that the band first performed Live Forever, Strange Thing, and Bring It On Down. The set was tight and sounded brilliant, and the crowd were really appreciative. At the end of the Oasis gig, the guys from The Real People, who were in the audience, decided to jump on stage and do an impromptu 20-minute encore to round off the night. They staggered around on stage, blitzed out of their heads, singing out of tune, but the audience loved it, joining in. It was when Diggsy invited Noel round to his house for tea that Noel was inspired to write the lyrics to Diggsy's dinner. Noel hates anything fancy and foreign, and lasagna counts as that to him. Noel's eating habits aren't the healthiest, and consist of a strange diet of pot noodles and burgers. It was around this time that Oasis recorded their famous live demonstration tape with the aid of The Real People's equipment and studio facilities. It was the first time Oasis had something on tape that would really turn heads. Oasis returned to Manchester's Boardwalk in May for the gig that at last started to establish them with their home crowd. Both Noel and I knew Ian Marr, but we didn't realise his brother was Johnny Marr. It was through this connection that Johnny Marr first got onto Oasis, and the band ended up with Marcus Russell managing them. Noel explained at the time, "I used to see this lad Ian down the Hacienda all the time in the late 80s, and we'd chat and have a laugh. I told him I'd got a band." "Oh, what are he called?" "Oasis." "All right, you'll have to get us a tape and I'll play it to our kid." I just thought, big deal, who's your kid? "Johnny Marr." Well, I dragged him round to the flat and gave him a cassette. 2 hours later the phone rang and it was Johnny Marr himself. He'd heard our tape. "This is amazing, can I produce your records?" Johnny helped us quite a lot, getting us a top professional manager. After he came to see us, he actually phoned Marcus and said, "I've just seen the greatest band